You're listening to the Sass Says podcast. I'm your host, Christy Rocha, also known as Sass. I identify as a woman, a wife, and a mother. That should tell you a lot already. And over the last few years, I've learned the value of talk therapy. I have seen how my inner work not only enhances my own well-being, but also my marriage, my parenting, my relationships. And in fact, you wouldn't be hearing this right now if it weren't for the work I've done. My mission is to debunk the misconceptions and stigmas around what therapy is and who it's for. Let's normalize working on our mental health and seeking help when needed. We've all heard of self-care, self-help, and self-love, but do you often wonder how to actually make it all happen? I do. You'll hear strategy-based conversations with professionals, as well as inspiring and validating stories from women who are just like you and me. Think of this podcast as the weekly therapy sessions you didn't know you needed, with a dash of sass, a lot of vulnerability, and me, relentlessly asking, but how? Hello, hello, hello. I'm so excited to share this interview with you. If you follow me on Instagram, you saw that after we recorded this interview, I posted on my stories that this girl is goals. Samantha Porter Grinney is the founder of Samantha's West, a podcast to supply you with entertainment and interviews from philanthropic and entrepreneurial guests. Samantha's West has evolved over the years and continues to do so as her interests change and her family grows. She is a wife to an ER doctor, a stepmom to teenage twins, mom to her toddler West, dog mom to Henry, who makes a little appearance on the show today, and so much more. In my opinion, Samantha is a freaking rock star. All right, so throughout this conversation, you're going to get a wonderful picture into her life, from her family roots to growing up and leaning into her Jewish heritage, to how she went from high fashion New York City girl to podcasting Florida mom pursuing philanthropic interests. All in all, Samantha tells it like it is authentically her, believes in therapy and prioritizes mental health, and is the ultimate mama bear, all things I love. So here she is. Hey, Samantha. So nice to see you. Thanks for being here.
Hi, thanks for having me. Oh my
What do we have here?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Hi. He's a lover. Sorry, this is my second child.
Is it the camera, or is he like a really big dog? Like, he looks huge.
He just got weighed last week. He's 68 and a half pounds and almost 11 months old.
Wow. Oh, look. Cute. Oh my God. All right. Well, Henry, I'm gonna try to talk to your mom for a little bit.
Yeah, I know. He gets no attention. Can you tell?
Oh yeah. I'm sure. Totally starved of affection. All right. Well, one thing I have loved since you said it on our conversation on your show was that you talked about therapy as a mental massage. And I would love if you would to just kind of like take me back of, the abbreviated, I'm sure, because it's a long thing I'm asking you, but like your experience with therapy, like why you started, what it does for you, all the things.
So, full transparency, I run very anxious. Like everyone in my family, it's like my goal in life to not put my anxious tendencies on my children. Like, they don't know I don't like to fly. They do know about elevators because I make a big scene in the elevators. But anyways, because mom, love you. I got it from her. It's confirmed. Anyways, been in therapy my whole life. It was never a taboo in my family. It was just, you go to therapy. This is what we do. And on and off, I've been my whole life. And my brother is my best friend, and he's also a believer in therapy. And like, we really have to push each other sometimes to like go. And we always say like, it's like getting a mental massage, because you leave there feeling lighter, relieved. And advice to people who are maybe on the verge of starting, maybe the therapist isn't for you. Like, it's okay. I'm not saying you should shop around and look for the perfect, person who's going to agree with everything, but like, it takes a minute to get into a rhythm, and maybe you don't like with everyone, but you should walk out of there feeling really freaking good or empowered or just better in some way.
Yeah. Can you look back on either your childhood or just your family life and identify why you think it wasn't taboo in your family? And I ask because in so many families, in so many cultures, in
Mhm.
so many parts of the world, like it still is even to
Oh my
this day.
gosh, my in-laws, I love them dearly. I love my husband's family. I would never tell them that I go to a therapist. I mean,
Mm,
they probably know from listening, or like I've been on and off medication like right before I got married and then after I weaned my son from breastfeeding, my hormones. I would never tell them. It could be my own thing thinking they're going to judge it, but like
mm.
yeah,
There's
I guess
something there though, right?
there's
Like
something there,
yeah.
like, yeah, and I equate that to answer your question with just a lot of people have different morals and value sets. Like I, like my parents would always kid like being Jewish, like we're Jewish, we run anxious, we're hypo, that was their answer for anything. Like you have a stomach
Okay.
ache, why you have a Jewish stomach, like it's so ridiculous. I told my doctor that one time, he laughed.
That's
Um,
amazing.
but yeah, and it just was never, it was just something we did and valued. And, you know, I feel like now it's definitely a luxury still, but like it's become more, it's not like, oh, like you're fancy enough to go have
Mm,
therapy and spend money to do that. Like there's so many options to go and get help where it's not like this like bougie stigma or like only like upper middle class wealthy people get to do this. I think there's a lot wrapped into that. If I could take a guess on my in-laws, I think they're much more faith-based,
mhm.
religious, and I think that maybe they would like go and consult someone in their church maybe for help and advice where like I didn't have that. I'm just making assumptions here, but yeah.
Yeah. I hear you. It's funny, Dr. Toussaint, Dr. Samara Toussaint is coming to mind. She um grew up in a Haitian community. And so
Okay.
like faith was huge. And the one thing now she's a therapist that she said to me that sticks with me. And she said one of the ways that she gets through to her community on how to bridge the gap is she said that like she'll say to them, God created me and God put me here to help you.
I love
And
that.
so like it just to me like it was like, oh yes, like because I'm not overly religious by any means. But similar to you, like my in-laws are certainly pretty religious. They also are just I think generationally we just have like
Sure.
different values.
That's a
And
huge,
so
sure.
I it's not something I overly stress about or worry about. And I don't mean to assume you do. I just that to me was like, if ever the day came that we were to have a sit down with my in-laws, like I'm gonna remember that line. like,
Yes.
like God, Jesus, whoever you care
Yeah.
about, put my
Mhm.
therapist on the earth to help me.
Yeah.
like,
Absolutely.
yes.
Listen, I talk about growing up Jewish, but we weren't religious. Like it's really more like culturally Jewish and like
Yeah.
traditions and whatnot.
Mhm.
Okay. And we live in a not very Jewish area at all of Florida. And my son's in an Episcopal preschool, and he's going to be going to an Episcopal education. And I'm totally fine with it because of like if you're teaching my son good morals and values and like how to be a good like person and member of society. My beloved dog passed away, Priscilla. She was almost 15 this summer. It was awful. It was awful. Like I have Henry and we love him, but like the pain of Priscilla, like I lost my child and I didn't expect my son to be so heartbroken and dealing with grief and loss with a 5-year old is he was 4, almost 5, really challenging and like trying to manage my own grief. And I was super grateful for the Episcopal whatever because it
Mhm.
gave him like I could tell him like she's in doggy heaven and she's with God and like all these things that I knew comforted him that like me and my husband did not give him those tools. So like
Yeah.
I really think that for whatever it I don't even know. So yeah, there's my long-winded thank
Yeah.
you for church preschool.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. Like I didn't I don't expect to talk about religion this whole time,
No,
but
not at all. Sorry. Here
it's
we
no,
are.
no, and I am pushing it, but my husband and I were both raised Catholic and we're not practicing anymore. But the only thing that kind of trips me up every now and then is kind of like what you're saying, like there are is it traditions or just something to like there is that aspect of something to like ground you in some
Yeah.
way.
And I needed
Um,
that in that moment because honestly, I had to grieve in my own way, and you put your children before yourselves, of course, and it was so much easier for us to cope because that was how he was coping. And then I have my shrine for my dead dog in my kitchen. It's pathetic.
oh,
Oh,
oh
I
my
love her. I
God.
miss her every single day. And then I have this crazy guy. We love animals. We love animals. Sorry,
Oh,
but
well, I'm sorry to
anyways,
hear about Priscilla.
I know, but
Hmm.
that's
Um,
the circle
yeah,
on to positive topics. I'm so
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
I
No,
messed
no,
that
no,
one
no,
up
you're
there.
fine. Is your going back a moment, is your brother older, younger?
My brother is younger, 6.5 years, I believe.
Wow,
Um,
okay.
we weren't super close growing up because of the age gap, but now if I told you that we probably have spoken 3 times already today and it's 10:45 in the morning, that would
Yeah.
be normal.
Yeah. He lives closer now.
He lives a 5-hour car ride away. We both live in the state of Florida, but we live about as opposite ends as possible. But
Yeah.
we probably are together like once a month or so. He's a big part of our life.
Nice. That's nice. I ask and I wondered because I'm sure you've seen on social media and things like that, and just probably in your own experience of life, like kind of the older sister, oldest sister, oldest daughter, sort of
Yeah.
like all the things that you take on. Did
Mhm.
you experience kind of
I
the
raised my brother.
tropes? Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, this poor guy has more parentals than he knows what to do with. Yes, 100%. Oh my
Yeah.
God. I
Yeah.
totally took that role on, a big sister, but I take that on no matter what I do. I think I don't know if it's just like the birth order or just like a personality trait or what. I'm a stepmom.
Mm.
They just turned 14, my twins, and I've been with them since they're 4, and I was only
Oh.
4, but you guys can do the math how old I am. And I've always I like that role. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
I do.
How was how was it like to be a stepmom? Like what
No,
was that transition
it's
like?
so funny now that they're like full blown teenagers. I was like, I get why it could be a lot harder for other people meeting older children. Cause like I'm 10 years in. They don't remember a life when me and their dad were not together because they were very young during their parents' divorce. So like I can be a very active participant in their life because of the time and just the way my husband works as a physician. Like a lot of the times I am the primary caregiver because,
Mm,
you know, you go to the hospital, you go to the emergency room, you want your doctor focusing on you, not putting out fires at home with
right.
bedtime and bath time. So
Wow.
I've always taken a big role, and luckily their dad, my husband, and their mom know that and they respect that. And I also respect boundaries. You got to respect boundaries. But man, if I didn't know them back in the day, because like they don't call as much as they used to, or they're like snippy and attitudinal, um, it could have been a lot different. But like
Yeah.
now I can be like, you're being attitudinal, give me your
Right.
phone, get it
Attitudinal. I love
together.
that.
Whereas like if I just went into their lives, like I couldn't do that. I'd be like the typical step
Yeah.
monster, you know? But
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I think having known them for so long, when they are attitudinal or things like that, it's like I would guess that you don't take it as personally. Like you
no,
know
because
them well enough to know that they're not actually dissing you, they're just being their age.
they're being their age. That's
Yeah.
true. And honestly, to anyone else who goes into a step parenting situation with maybe older kids, I've had a lot of therapy, clearly. It's not you, it's the person, it's the representation. Maybe they're upset their parents are divorced, maybe they whatever it is. I mean, maybe it's you, maybe they really just don't like you because they're teenagers. They're no different than like a toddler
Right.
with their likes and wants and needs, I swear.
Right.
Um, don't personalize it as much as possible. There's a lot of like weird hormones, and being a teenager in 2023, I do not want to be there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could go a lot of ways, but um, you got to take it. Just try to remember where you were. That's another thing. Like my husband and I have an 18-year age gap,
Mm,
and I was younger a lot more recent than my husband and their mom. So sometimes they know that I can relate to them a little bit better,
mm,
or I'm like almost like the intermediary.
yeah.
I also have a divorced household, so and they don't. So like I know what it's like more. So I've always advocated big for them, and they know that,
Mhm.
luckily. So
That's
yeah.
amazing. Yeah, it's like you can. you can see them in a way
Yeah.
that their parents can't.
Yeah, and same thing with my brother. My brother's been so good because he was much younger when my parents got divorced. I was out of the
Oh,
home. So like stuff will go on and I'll even call Scott and I'll be like, "Hey, can you just call the kids or like explain to Mike, my husband, like why it's so important that they don't see us tonight because they go to this school dance like because he's even younger of course and lived it more. It's just we're very fortunate to be close and listen to each other because
yeah,
not everyone does. They'd be like,
yeah,
"You don't know what you're talking about."
right. How, if you don't mind me asking,
Yeah.
how did the kids take to your pregnancy and now your son and all that?
Oh,
'Cause I
yeah.
feel like
So
that's like a whole other transition.
no, it's a great question. So full disclosure, the kids don't live with us. It's a full co-parenting situation, but we are long distance. So like
Oh,
next weekend is President's Weekend. So like we have the kids for the long weekend and we have them half the summer. So it's not every single day. Where it could be a little bit different, but the kids were very a part of knowing we wanted to grow our family. We did not tell them until we went. I was far along enough to find out the gender, and we took them as a surprise. So
oh,
they
that's
found out I was
awesome.
pregnant, and they were having a baby brother. They were only 8 years old. I want to say they loved it. Like Wes loves his brother and sister, and they're kind of like they're old enough to babysit.
Mhm.
Um, I have noticed that I want to do more things alone with everyone individually. Like Wes gets a lot of individualized mom and dad time. And the twins have always been twins. So that's a challenge. You've never really been your own person or your own time. And
Mhm.
like, Wes gets I'm not gonna use the word luxuries, but Wes does have some things that the kids don't just based off of where
Yeah.
they live. The fact that, I'm Wes' mom, like they love my family, like they would love to go on vacation with my dad. So we're doing solo stuff. Like we're doing a solo trip with Alexis. We're doing a solo trip with Dylan and not bringing Wes either to really try to put the emphasis on how important you guys are as individuals. And we want to give you that because we know we can't give it to you all the time.
Yeah, that's amazing. Really. Like that is I give
We're
you a lot
trying.
of credit.
It's not easy. We're trying, man.
Yeah.
And we're making mistakes all along the way, I guarantee you. But
Yeah.
we're really excited. We're going to take Dylan snow skiing. He loves to snowboard. We snow ski. We're taking Alexis to Miami, very much their personalities, what they like to do.
Mhm.
And you know what? Like, Wes, you're a lucky little bugger. You get us all the time. You might say
Yeah.
grandpa and Henry
Yeah.
the dog.
Yeah. But these are all things that I think I think like being a parent, right? It's it's not always about how it's received in the moment, but they'll remember that trip forever. And like even Wes will see the effort that you put in with his brothers and sister and his brother and sister and like it's just all really really good. Like I feel like you guys are you're doing a lot of like really good things if I do say
Oh,
so. Like it's really cool to
thank you.
like
I'll take the
see and hear about.
compliment.
Seriously, because
Oh,
it's really hard to mix families. I have half siblings as well and like it's hard. It's it's really challenging and so I think that even if because, and even now like having nieces and nephews who are in their teens, like you do something nice and like you get like a grunt in return, but
mhm.
it is like in my brain I'm always like, okay, when they're 30, they're
Yep.
gonna remember this, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
The longing.
that's what I'm talking about with the teenagers. It's
Yeah,
hard. Like, man, it is hard, especially with the phone calls, because it's like they're on their phones nonstop. They live and die by the phones, which I mean, I'm no better. My
I
phone's sitting
know.
right next to me. But so I see you on your phone all the time. And like, I can't butt in too much with this. This is more of my husband, but like, my husband wants to talk to you every night. He wants to hear about your day. Like, he loves the you know what out of you.
Yeah.
And just call him. He knows you're on the phone. Call him back.
Yeah.
Like, call. And then whenever they get attitudinal about it, I go, my dad's grandpa name is Papa Chip, and they're close with my family as well. I'm like, how many times does Papa Chip call me or I call Papa Chip every day? They're like,
Yeah.
no. I'm like, and I'm 34. I'm like, come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
also it's challenging when, there's a reason why my husband and his ex are exes, you know,
Right.
and I have to remind him that regularly, like, if you guys worked, I wouldn't be here. So don't expect her to maybe put this huge emphasis. Maybe it's not important that they, you know, like when you gotta like
Yeah.
be very open-minded in these situations because
Yeah.
there's a lot of variables.
Yeah. Well, and they're getting to an age where even if his ex, whatever she's doing, like they're getting to an doing or not doing, like making,
Yeah.
I'm not here to make assumptions. It's just they're getting to an age where they're starting to make their own decisions and they're making up their own mind about what they want to do and how they want to do it. And hopefully that's actually a good thing, right? Like that's what you want, right? You want,
Very. I always tell them I'd rather know a truth, like a bad truth, than like a BS lie or like a
yeah,
pretty lie. Like tell me the real deal, and I promise you it'll be better than if I find out a lie.
yeah,
Always. I'm big on that. I'm
yeah.
really big on that.
Well, it sounds like they are very lucky to have you.
Oh, I'll make sure they listen to this so they know.
They can call me. I'll tell them. Except
Aw.
they probably won't call me because they don't like to call people. All right, a question for you. Where does the name West come from?
Oh, great question. Thanks for asking. I wanted to, you know, this was the only child we were having, and I really wanted a boy, and we had all of our names, and my husband is the second, and my husband has a son already, which was not the third. And my darling father-in-law came in and said, our namesake, our legacy. And I was hell bent. And he, you know, made some very generous offers, like, you know, his education, not that the other kids' educations aren't paid for, but you know, he sweet talked us.
Okay.
So we started contemplating it. Wes was always a name I loved. And my father is the second as well. And his name is Lawrence Charles, but he goes by Chip. Like when he was born, my aunt said like he's Chip off the old block. So it was like very casual. So I was like, you know what, this is because like I felt like we weren't honoring my family at all because he was always going to have the last name. Not that it's super important, but I love my maiden name, Porter. I think it's a great name. So blah, blah, blah. Long story short, he is Michael Allen Grinney III, and he goes by West. That's really all he knows. When we used to go to the airport and they'd look at his passport, they'd be like, hi, little Mikey. And he'd be like, so if he was here, I would have him do it. I go, Wes, what's your airport name? He goes, Michael. But like at school, everyone knows him as West. He's such a West. Yeah. So
does that satisfy your father-in-law that he goes by West, but he doesn't care?
Nope. They thought it was a great idea.
Perfect. Everybody's happy.
Everybody won.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Okay. So, which way do I want to go with this? All right. So why don't we do that since we're talking about West?
Okay.
Tell me a little bit about Samantha's West and what your sort of entrepreneurial and podcasting like journey was like and why you do all of the things you do.
It's so fun that you're asking me this today because I was with people last night kind of talking about next steps. I met my husband in my early 20s and I have a sociology degree. That was my background. And my mom works in development at a hospital. So I always was volunteering. Like charity was huge in my house. Like for birthdays, we always did Toys for Tots and donated our presents, which I do now with my son. So my parents were really good about putting that emphasis of like, you're a fortunate person. How can we help others? Awesome. And it's just been a passion of mine, and sociology worked with that. But, you know, New York City, I got involved in fashion, never used my degree. I was actually very bitter for a very long time. Like, I don't use my college education. Like, this is wild. Moved to Florida, where I live in Florida. There's not much fashion related kind of crossover work, we'll call it. It's gotten better, Jacksonville, yay. But anyways, thought I would do real estate. My family does real estate. It just didn't work. Then I had West. I got a consulting job with a jewelry company, and like I loved working. Like I loved having this other purpose. And I always said like before West, I didn't really like not try, but I was just like, whatever, I'll figure it out. But like having my son taught me like I'm capable of a lot more stuff than I realized. Like I can do this. And like I thrive better when it's like, okay, we have to get up so I can work out, drop you at school, and then I can come back and take my interview. Like I like busy. The job ended because it was a consulting job, whatever. And I I call it heartbroken. I actually wasn't in therapy for a while. I had to go back to therapy. I was like, I feel like I have no purpose.
Mm.
Obviously I do, but whatever.
Mhm.
And so champagne problems. We're on a sailboat in the British Virgin Islands. Me, my dad, his wife at the time, my brother, my husband, my kid. Like, what type of job can Samantha do? Okay. Like, no one cry for me. But long story short, how do I give a voice to people who are doing good stuff?
Mm.
And I always did like communications and broadcast journalism. I did a few summer programs at University of Miami. The dream was always to be on like a host on TV, like Nancy O'Dell was of the time, but maybe like a Morgan Stewart, more relatable now. So we just kept putting our heads together, and there was Samantha's West, and it just keeps unveiling and growing. I used to sell stuff for people. Like it, I don't know if you felt like that with your podcast, but it just like not snowballs in a bad way, but it grows, it
It
progresses,
evolves.
it
Yeah.
changes, it evolves. Thank you. Like right now I'm trying to get a job actually working on the ground in Jacksonville for a nonprofit. And like I was at like a city council meeting. I'm like, maybe this is my
Yeah.
path. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
Like when
Very
people
cool.
like ask like 18-year-olds what they want to do, I'm like, I'm 34. I don't know what I want to do. Like,
I
come
know.
on.
Yeah. Yeah. And we talked about this when we spoke. It's like this, I don't know. You're just, there's so much pressure to like figure it out immediately as soon as you
So much
graduate. And it's like,
pressure.
why,
I should have
why?
never gone to college. I was 17 when I graduated high school because I had
Mm.
like a late birthday in November. It's like 17-year-olds do not know what they want to do.
No.
Like my husband, I think got it right. So Michael went to undergrad, did like chemistry or biochem, whatever, worked for 10 years, and then he turned 30. And guys are a little more immature than women, let's be honest. My husband at least. And at 31, he was like, no, I knew I always wanted to be a doctor. And I got kind of talked out of it. I wasn't ready. I wasn't mature enough. And he went back to med school. And,
Oh,
you know, that I couldn't imagine going back to school at 30, 31 years old. And he did it.
yeah.
And oh, I give
Yeah.
him a lot of credit. He
Yeah.
probably at 18 years old,
No way. Yeah.
there's a very special person who knows that so early on, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I've contemplated over the last few years going back just because with my show, my husband's always like, why don't you just be a therapist? Like go back to school and be a therapist and that. And it's like,
Really
it
supportive.
sounds it sounds great, but when I actually think about having to like study and write a term paper after like putting my kids to bed, I'm like, oh no. Like
That's a
no,
lot.
thank you. Like the women that do
You
go
can
back and do
go
it, like, whoa.
you can go and get like day off because believe me, I spent many times on days on the local college website seeing what I
Mhm.
could do. Also, I thought maybe going into nursing, you have no idea the crazy stuff I've looked into. But they have all these like certificates you can do, like life coaching certificates and stuff that I mean, it's not the same as going and becoming a licensed therapist, but
Right.
like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Might be fun.
Well, you know how it is. It's the
I
evolution. It's
I
like,
get
okay, we
it.
take one step and then we see where we land.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
at this point, because I know, like you said, you at one point were selling goods. Are you still selling goods? No.
So that was like prime COVID, and Florida
Okay.
ran a little different than the rest of the world, we'll just say. And everyone was doing these pop-ups everywhere around town where I live.
Mm,
And you paid a fee, and it was outside, and we had our little booth, and like all my friends would come by, and I would
that's
have
cool.
champagne for everyone because I'm a lush. And I would have the products, like there were swimsuits, there was hats, jewelry, nail polish. Anyone that I had interviewed, I would buy their stuff, usually wholesale, and I would sell it and get their name out there. And it was
It's really
fun, but
cool.
like, yeah, and we enjoyed it. I mean, I have a retail background, like I love it.
Mhm.
Um, it just got to a point where it didn't make sense because just like the climate of the world changed, and I ended up with like so much stuff. Like my husband was like, "Can you just give all your friends these pajamas? Like we have so much pajamas in the house that you bought."
Mhm.
So again, just an evolution. But during COVID, it was a great thing. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you have a retail background,
Mhm.
spent a lot of time in New York City. Um, what do you take from all that? Like what still applies to you with your experience in I think even just living in the city and I think particularly working in fashion in New York City is like a very, I don't know, it's a very unique experience, I feel like, and like,
Like, and there's a million people who want to do your job for free too. It's like,
yeah.
I remember quitting my job and moving to Florida to be with my husband probably way too prematurely. We weren't even engaged yet, but
Mm,
I'll never forget. I was working my tail off, I was very fortunate where my rent was always paid for, but like my day to day, it was me and Priscilla, my dog. So like I basically knew I needed enough money for clothes, food, Pinot Grigio, and I used to call it the boo boo fund. Like if God forbid anything happened to her, I could like take her to the vet, the boo boo fund. And I refused to get a credit card. I was terrified of getting credit card debt. So I was living very, I never had to pay rent. So like no one cried for me, but I was living lean, whatever. And
no
they
one
pulled,
cry for me.
don't cry. Well, I mean, come on. I've never paid my own rent. Like in New York City, come on, it's a freaking luxury, like
I know.
whatever. So I won't say the retailer I work for, but if you listen to me, the manager, I was visual merchandising at this point, and like it was time for me to get a promotion. The manager pulled me into the bathroom and said that I need to spend more money at the store buying clothes and like up my wardrobe,
Oh my
and then I
God.
will get a promotion.
Mm,
I said, I have to take a break.
yeah.
I left. My now husband, then boyfriend, was in town. I told him what happened. And then that night, his children's nanny quit. His ex called him freaking out because she's a very big job, very, very career driven woman. It's very cool. And I said, F it, I'm quitting my job. I will help you take care of your kids until
Oh my
I find a new
goodness.
nanny.
Wow.
That all happened in 24 hours.
Oh my God. And you were young. You were like, what
24.
did you say, 24? Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Do
Mm-hmm.
you feel like that's incredible? Do you, so I just for a little background, I was the intern in fashion in New York for a couple of
I,
summers. And the one thing that it really still sticks with me is being in that world. No one sugarcoats a darn thing.
yep.
And it's quick and it's competitive and it can be very cutthroat.
Mm-hmm.
But and all of that I actually was like good with. Like I work very well in a fast-paced environment and all the things. The one thing that I think kind of like messed with me, like messed me up still to this day was like the body image stuff.
Oh,
Like being told
absolutely.
that I was like too big to do certain things. And I know now looking back, I'm not a big girl. I
Yep.
just was not as
It's a
small as
warped
this
sense of
straw.
reality.
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
100%. I mean, body image is a big thing that I talk about on my podcast and just in life in general. I was a chubbier kid, and like I have to work very, very hard to maintain what I like as a body type, which I probably will never like, but that's a whole other therapy session we won't
I
have.
know.
We are so skewed in big cities in New York. Um, like, oh my gosh, like obviously I was much smaller before children and 24, different metabolism, but like the sizes that like were the normal size or like what you're supposed to look like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. That's why I'm raising my kid in Jacksonville. Like
Mm,
it's it's a warped, like I mean more so like I want him to be a kid as long as he can be a kid, but like
mm,
people don't in the fashion world, they actually do look like that. It's
yes.
real. It's
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. I mean,
I
now there's like so much body positivity, inclusivity, and stuff. So it's different. But like, I mean, still to this day, like when I'm shopping online and there's like normal people modeling, I'm like, I can't believe this exists. Like,
yeah.
almost I'm shocked a little bit because my eye is like so trained in a way to what I was used to seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I shared this on a show recently. I can't remember which one, but it was like I was an intern on a television show, a fashion show, and like they needed a stand-in for a moment to
Okay.
like test lighting and this and that. But they were trying to like match us up body types. And it was basically like they had all the interns come in and it wasn't meant to be personal. It just was what it was. Like the producer like went down the line and was like, too big, too big, too big. Okay, small enough to do it. Like, and it was just like, like I'm 19 or whatever I am, like never been more like aware of my body in my life. And it was just like, oh my God, I'm like too big. And then like we had to like I remember it was like the crap they make interns do, but like it was
Oh
amazing.
yeah.
It was an amazing experience. Like you really had to like think and do quickly. But I remember we had to make a dress for a segment. We had to make a dress out of trash bags and
Oh my.
like these rhinestones. It was like a whole thing. It was meant to be a spoof, but
Okay.
we had to make it. And it was like whoever it was, I don't remember if it was a producer, someone came in and was like looked at all of us interns and was like size it to her body because she's the smallest, and you're just like,
It's so funny because as a mom now, I have such a different reaction to that. Maybe if you had asked me 10 years ago, the only thing in my head is like, I do not want Lexi to ever witness that or have to
yeah,
do that. Like, that's
yeah,
my immediate go to is like, whereas like maybe 10 years ago, I would have been like, oh, I need to get smaller or whatever. And mine's just like full mama bear protection mode. Like,
yeah,
yeah, this is awful. Like, I would not want, like, I would have cried probably. I'm so
yeah.
sensitive.
I think that it's awful. We agree on that. I also think though that like just now as an adult with hindsight and more like inner work and all the things, like
Sure, sure.
it wasn't meant to be personal. It's just unfortunately when you put someone's actual physical body into a conversation, it inevitably becomes personal.
Right. It's easy for like someone on the outside to say like, oh, like step away from it, don't personalize
Yes.
it, whatever. But like,
Yes.
but you're not a mannequin. You're a
Right.
freaking person.
And
Like
you're
how
young.
yeah.
And
Oh
so
my
you
God.
don't process it the same way that, like, if I was in that situation now as an adult, I'd look at them and be like, pardon me,
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, fine. I don't need to be here anyway. Like, as an
Right.
adult, you have more confidence, but you have, particularly in my situation, like, we were interns, we were in college, high school
Right.
age, really like prime years. Anyway, okay. I'm just always curious,
No, it's
you know?
very, very real. It
Yeah.
is. It happened to me a little bit differently because I wasn't spending enough money in the store.
Yeah. I know. It's ridiculous. All right. So
Yeah.
you move with like your husband or then boyfriend, but
Mhm.
let's go to like when he's your husband, you're having kids, like you don't have a lot of family there, you don't have a lot of support. Like, how did you go about making friends, finding a community, getting support,
I'll be
all of
honest,
that?
I was miserable beyond belief. We didn't move to where we live now. I moved into the house that he bought with his ex-wife when
Mm,
they were expecting twins, and there was always this like, I'm living someone else's whatever. It was in a very suburban area on a cul-de-sac, not near anything. 24-year-old fashion New Yorker with her little pocket puppy. It was miserable.
Picturing
So
Elle Woods.
yeah, I mean, it might as well have been. Like I have a gold convertible. I love a gold
Love
convertible.
it.
Anyways, I took a job as a hostess in like the downtown area just to like do something at night, get myself out there. It was fun, but like not practical. Like my husband's or my fiance at this point now is like
Right.
a doctor at one of the biggest hospitals in the world. And like, here's Sam hostessing, it
Yeah.
was weird, but it was fun. But I still never. And we moved to Jacksonville Beach area, which is a lot more going on. I'm like, okay, like there's stores, there's people, but like I never had a job. I never knew where to go. It was awful. I was lonely. I was miserable. I would be like looking at jobs in Miami and like maybe we'll have like a long distance marriage. Like that's
Mm,
where I was at. Um, we we were going to move and then we didn't again to South Florida. And I was like, let's have a baby. What else am I gonna do? Still had no one. I had Wes and I looked at my little bubby and I was like, you are going to give me friends.
yeah.
He got his shots at 3 months old. We went to every mommy and me, every class, every gymboree, every story time. And I would come home crying and say, these people aren't like me. And my
Yeah.
husband would say, my husband's so good at making friends. You will find your people. Be friends with someone who maybe isn't your person. And
Mm,
maybe they'll, and it just kept growing and growing. And I'm like embarrassed to say this. Like, I have a lot of friends, and like some of the friends that I've made are like bonds and friendships that are not like anything I've ever had. Like, I don't know if it's maturity or children raising together, but like, I feel really fortunate. And like,
mm,
I never thought I would get here. And like, the people that I found people like me. I found people, it's amazing. I have my workout friends, my school mom friends. I'm on the gala. I just got offered a position recently with like a global charity or nonprofit called PJ Library, where they're giving books to Jewish kids, like Jewish stories, because there's not a lot. And it's just like 5 hours a week I do it. And I'm the community connector. Literally, when people come to town, they call me. And I do play dates and I put people together, and I made a really good friend through it. But like some of the other people maybe aren't like my besties, but like I connected them to other people because I was like, I know how freaking lonely it can be. This happens to be through like the temple and like the Jewish part of my life, again, filling my Jewish guilt because my kid's at Episcopal, so we're going to temple more. But yeah, I used my kid. I used him. I had him. Thanks, Wes. I had you to fit in.
Yeah, no, I mean a lot of people do, right? I mean, it's
my ticket, I say.
Yeah. I've struggled with that. And it's honestly only the last like month that I have started reaching out to people. I think that I have a group of friends from childhood that are still close. Like they're basically like family at this point, but we're all in like very different phases of life. And I think like you're saying, it's like I love them to death and I will always want to see them and spend time with them. But there's a huge difference between a conversation that I'm going to have with a mom who also has a 3 and a 5-year-old like I do versus like my dear friends who are pregnant with their first baby. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I went through that
different.
a lot because I had a baby at the same time as like my first like group of friends did, and everybody went on to have another baby and I didn't. And some of those friendships have dwindled a little bit. I think we mentioned it a little bit. I don't want to like give it too much credence, but like there's also like toxic like mommy friends too, and like like guilt and like all this stuff. And like I hate it to be mean, but it's like we haven't been in diapers in 3 years. Like when we go out in the afternoon, like I'm not planning around nap time. My kid doesn't nap, and it seems selfish, but it's like, no, this is where I am in my life. I still love you, but like I'm not going to your 2-year-old's nap time. Like we're out having mimosas and Wes is like whatever. I myself sound like such a lush. Oh my goodness. It was that was a challenging transition for me, for sure, in this new mom and dog friendship. I met a lot of fun people at the dog park too. I had a great dog park.
That's good. Yeah, I get that though, because it's like, it's funny. I was at my friend who's in this group, but we brought our kids over to the house. We were watching like one of the playoff football games, and they had friends from another group. Basically, like I was there as like her friends, and then like her fiance had his friends, and her fiance's friends, the one had a baby there under a year old, and this is the first time I'm meeting her, but she spent most of the time we were there walking the baby around in the stroller or getting on the floor and keeping him out of the light sockets and exactly. And then like he needed to feed, and then he needed to nap and this and that. And like I, for the first time in such a long time, was able to like not be in the same room as my kids. And the whole time, this isn't exactly what you were saying, but it's like I was watching her, and there was such a huge part of me that wanted to be like, do you want me to hold him? Do you want me to walk him around? Do you want me to try to do? And but then like the other part of me was like, this is literally the first time I'm in this house where I can talk to my friend.
You're enjoying your time.
Yes. And it's like, it was such a like a mind F, but like I can totally see what you're saying, because I'm getting to that point. I'm starting to see the light, like, and then it's like at the same time, my dear friends are going to be back on the floor doing tummy time. And it's like, no, I'm ready to go out and drink champagne now.
Exactly.
I'm ready to go live, and it's hard.
And the kids can all play together. And it's, I had 2 very good friends. One friend and I, it did not affect our friendship, and the other friend it did. I'll be completely frank. I think she felt left out a lot, which was not the case. It's just facts of life, and I also maybe what I did, I gravitated more towards hanging out with people where they're their youngest children was the same age as West.
Yes.
So they might have more kids than me or olders, but like their youngest is my current. So like it's just there's a lot more to talk about, to do, you know. The
Yes.
diapers was a big one for me because like my kid potty trained early. I take no credit. He like potty trained himself. But like people, I'm like, I enough diaper talk, diaper change.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a diaper in forever. How much
Yeah.
money are you spending on diapers? Potty train your kids.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know about you, but even when my kids were babies, even now, like whatever they're in, when I am with other women, I don't really want to talk about them.
That's true too.
Like
That's very true.
I'm
We're our
really
own
not,
people.
and I will say, I will, when I do talk about them, it's it's almost like I want to talk about who they are and not like how to get them to nap. Like I spend enough time in my own head and on Google worrying about that stuff that when I get with a group of women, I do just want to drink champagne and talk about like how annoying it is that they don't sleep through the night, but not like, oh my God, like I
That's
just
the
don't,
whole
not
premise
me.
of what,
Yeah.
yep. I got it. I got
Yeah.
it. I think though, like there are some people who are, that's just their baseline. That's how they run. And I think those people will find those people because like I experienced that. And I feel like I found my people who aren't as much like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. I think, yes, to put a nice bow on that, it's like everybody's going to find who
My brother always told
you
me that
died
too.
with.
You
Yeah.
will.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of your brother, I had made a note and I didn't want to go back to it.
Sure.
What was that? What was the shift like in the evolution of like getting close? And I ask because I have siblings, like my next sibling is 7 years older than I am. And so and then I have older ones. And it's like, we did not grow up together. We have different moms. It was like an every other weekend situation. But even by the time I was old enough to like have awareness of all of it, it's like they were in high school, they were in college. And so I'm curious for you, like how you guys came
So
back together.
yeah, so it's kind of interesting. So when I went to college, my parents split, my dad moved out. So it was just like it was a lot going on. And I mean, divorce is awful for people. My mom had been with my dad for a very long time, and I'm not trying to share her story, but I think, you know, it was probably a little traumatic on her. So like I had to step in as that
Mm,
person. Like I came home every weekend. So it
mm,
was more of like a mom figure initially. Not saying my mom isn't an incredible mom and wasn't capable, but like I I kind of stepped up for him. He needed
yeah.
something. And
Because he was, I guess, in middle
14, I
school. Yeah.
think.
High school,
Yeah,
middle school. Yeah. Yeah.
13. I don't remember the exact age. So I've always been a nurturer. I've always been a caretaker. So it wasn't weird. I didn't go to college that far away. I would come home every weekend. So, you know, I think he saw that. And
Mhm.
then I remember when he went to college, like just grew from there. Because it's still a nurturing motherly relationship, but like I go to him for advice now. I think it just me being out of the house and kind of, you know, this is where our family is. Like we went through a huge like socioeconomic change when my parents split up, to be frank. So like once I graduated college and I was making not good money, but enough money, I could like take my brother shopping. He would come to the city for the weekend. I would kind of spoil him. I had a lot of guilt. I grew up spoiled effing rotten. You know, I had a Porsche in high school, very
Mhm.
unrelatable, I know. And like my brother didn't get those obscene luxuries, not
Yeah.
luxuries, obscene luxuries. And
Yeah.
I wanted to do everything to give him whatever I could.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
you
he drives a
had,
very nice car that I give him stuff about all the time. But anyway, yeah,
yeah.
I guess I just wanted to give him everything that I had too.
Yeah. You bonded. You took a hard time and grew
It
closer
was.
from it. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Okay.
was. It was.
Okay.
We're all close though. That's the funny thing. Like, I mean, obviously my mom and my dad aren't close, but
Yeah.
we're really close. Like we all talk. Like I have a group chat with my mom and my brother, or my dad and my brother, I call him my stepdad. He's not technically my stepdad. Like we're all very close, just separate.
Hmm. Hmm. Cool. Okay. All right. Sam, is there anything about your story or who you are that you would have wanted to make sure to talk about in this conversation that I didn't think to ask you or wouldn't have known to ask you about, or anything that you still kind of lingering on your mind?
No, I mean, you touched like the most important parts of me, like my family, giving back. Um, not having to make crazy, like give yourself grace to grow into the person you want to become. I think that's a big thing.
Mm,
And no, I mean that's me, I guess.
cool.
And a
Well,
dog mom.
yeah. All right. So the last thing I'll ask you then, which I often ask people, and I got sidetracked for a moment with your story. Um, how do you make it a priority to take care of yourself now? Like, what do you do? What do you like to do to take care of yourself? And how do you actually make sure it happens? I mean, just before this call, you're at a workout class. Like,
That's
how do
that's a
you
huge
do it?
part of it. So, I run very anxious, as I've said multiple times, and anyone who knows me knows that. I also have a lot of body stuff, as we discussed earlier too. So exercise for that hits both of those points. It's
Mm.
not just about looking good. It really makes me feel good. If we're on vacation, like I have to exercise on vacation. And like I'm not in some tiny bikini. I'm not at the weight that I would love to be at, but you got to do it and you
You
can't
feel
stop.
good.
You have
Yeah.
to make a priority for it. I went online and bought a jogging stroller that will hold the most weight on the market. It's this Juvie brand. It's not like the fancy Bob or whatever. And on days I can't exercise, I put my 5-year-old with his Legos in the stroller. I take Henry on the leash and we go for at least 3 miles if
Wow.
I'm not exercising. I have to do that. Like it's a non-negotiable. And that's how I was raised too. Like my dad's big into exercise, my husband's big into exercise, like activity. So and then also I'm like a little bit bougie. Like I have to get my nails done. I have to get my color done. I have to get my Botox done. I'll be completely honest and maybe even superficial, but like look good, feel good.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
budget out what I do so I can go and get my Botox 2, 3 times a year and my hair colored and
Hmm.
my Brazilian blowout. I used to get blowouts every Friday, but I perfected doing my hair on my own. So I don't know. I guess I'm superficial. Sorry.
No, but you know what? Right as soon as you said sorry, I was going to say, but you're unapologetic about it. And it's like, you have to find the things that make you feel good and do them.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
that's the bottom line. And for someone else, it might not be those things, and that's
No.
okay.
Yeah.
It's going
Like
to
I know
be,
plenty of people that go to the dog park. Like there's a bar at my dog park, but again, it's not like a lush. Their
that's
thing is
amazing.
yeah, it's the best dog park ever. It's called Brew
I think
House.
I would get a dog just for that.
I think people might do, but like that's their happy place. They go,
Yeah.
maybe they don't have kids or a significant other. They bring their dog, they meet up, they have a glass of wine, they do trivia. Like you'll find your thing. And it took me a long time to figure it out. Like I wish in my 20s when I didn't have kids and dogs and husband, like I joined a tennis team or did all the stuff that I'm doing now. And I'm like running around with a chicken with the head cut off. But everyone figures it out at their own space, their own time.
Yes. Very cool. Okay. Well, I'm a big fan of all the things you're doing, and you're inspiring me to just like
Thank you for having me. It's so much
do
fun to be on the
things.
other side.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this was great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, you love her, right? I made the reference during our conversation, and I'll say it again because I sincerely mean this in the best way. In my mind, whenever I picture Sam, I just picture Elle Woods. And I want to clarify what I actually mean when I say that. I think it is that she is so self aware, lets seemingly nothing get in her way of doing what's best for her and her family, and isn't bothered or bogged down by judgments and unwarranted opinions. And what I love about all of this is that she's so equally transparent about how she got to this point. It wasn't easy. As many times as she said, don't cry for me or champagne problems, she did, like so many of us, encounter challenging moments in her life. Her parents' divorce, moving and having a kid with little to no support system or friends nearby, to time and again wondering, questioning, and searching for her evolving purpose. I mean, these are all things we can relate to, and they're not small things. They're big things. And of course, kind of goes without saying that she's blonde and gorgeous, so hi, Elle Woods. Anyway, a few points I want to highlight are Samantha's philanthropic endeavors. I aspire to volunteer, donate, and do all the things like that I'm not doing yet. I'm not doing yet. She really inspired me. I linked PJ Library in the show notes for anyone interested in learning more about the charity she mentioned on the show. And how about how she spoke of her experience as a stepmom? You know, she switched gears in her 20s, became the nanny for her then boyfriend's kids, to now taking solo trips with each of her kids, and her ability to lean into her past to connect and relate to her stepchildren and be a really awesome co-parent. Like, it's amazing to hear, really. And lastly, you know, she spoke about realizing just how capable she is as a person when she became a mom. And I can relate to that. But it doesn't always look and feel capable in the moment. And I think that's the tricky thing about motherhood, is that in the moment, it feels really messy and really hard and at times daunting. But it's always in hindsight, or even a few days later, that you see that whatever you went through as a mom is worth celebrating, and that you got through it and you survived, and you sometimes more than survived, you thrived. And in no other role in life have there been so many opportunities and moments where I have had to keep going. I've had to push myself when I didn't want to or when I didn't think I could. And it's because those darn little cuties, they're relying on you. So take a moment to celebrate things that you've gone through, whether it's as a mom or just in your life, and go, yeah, wow, I got through that and I'm capable. So Sam, you're awesome. Thank you so much. It was so fun talking to you. Thank you for being here and for listening, and I will see you next time. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Sass Says is a production of Luann Nigara, Inc. This podcast is meant to be educational and not meant to replace professional therapy or professional medical attention. To learn more about today's show and what's new in my world, head over to sasssays.com. Thanks so much. Talk later.